When we look at the history of humanity, we see a recurring motif in every culture: lost cities, islands hidden behind mists, kingdoms concealed deep beneath the earth, or secret paradises that only the enlightened can find. These stories are windows into humanity's collective subconscious, because these lost lands are in fact reflections of our longings and fears. A dream of a society where there is no death, no greed or war, and where people live in harmony with nature. Perhaps humans invented these kingdoms that never truly existed in order to balance the injustices, disasters, and mortality of the world they inhabit. Just as their ancestors once looked to the stars and fashioned heroic tales from them, they turned lost realms into a compass pointing toward the unknown, a symbol of hope and dreams. That is why, when we listen to these myths, we are not merely witnessing the legends of ancient times, but also the unchanging desires of humankind. The story of Atlantis told by Plato is one of the most famous examples of these longings. The tale of Atlantis appears in the works Timaeus and Critias by the ancient Greek philosopher Plato. Plato presents this legend as having been told by Solon, who claimed to have heard it from Egyptian priests. According to the account, Atlantis was a civilization far ahead of its time. With its great naval power, it ruled vast regions of the world and achieved extraordinary accomplishments in engineering and architecture. It possessed a nearly perfect order with colossal temples, magnificent palaces, and a circular city plan surrounded by canals. The capital of Atlantis was a unique metropolis, at the center of which rose a magnificent temple dedicated to Poseidon. Its people initially lived just, wise, and measured lives, preserving the virtue they had inherited from the gods. Over time, however, as wealth and power increased, these virtues began to weaken. Ambition and arrogance seeped into the veins of society. They transformed into a state that defied the commands of the gods and sought to dominate other peoples, endlessly expanding its borders. At that point, the wrath of nature and the divine order descended upon Atlantis. With a series of earthquakes, floods, and catastrophes, the great continent was swallowed by the depths of the ocean in a single night. Throughout history, the legend of Atlantis has been interpreted in many different ways. Some believed it truly existed, searching for it in the Mediterranean, the Azores, and even the American continent. Some researchers argue that the myth was inspired by the destruction of the Minoan civilization on Santorini following a massive volcanic eruption. Others believe that Plato did not design Atlantis as a historical account, but as a moral warning. His message was clear: when power and wealth become detached from virtue, destruction is inevitable. For this reason, Atlantis became a mirror reflecting humanity's own inner weaknesses. Today, Atlantis still retains its allure in popular culture, appearing in novels as an ideal place like Utopia, and in films and games as a lost treasure waiting to be discovered. The legend of Shambhala, however, unlike Atlantis, is not the story of a catastrophe, but of an enlightenment that is longed for and sought after. In the teachings of Tibetan Buddhism, Shambhala is described as a sacred kingdom believed to be hidden in the secret valleys of the Himalayas. It cannot be seen with the eyes of ordinary people. Only those who have attained spiritual maturity and purified their hearts can find the gates of Shambhala. In the texts, Shambhala is portrayed as a land ruled by wise kings where the people live in virtue and peace. There is no illness, poverty, or war there. Everyone lives in harmony with nature. For this reason, Shambhala symbolizes humanity's inner journey. In the Buddhist Kalachakra teachings, Shambhala represents the highest state of wisdom and compassion. Shambhala did not remain confined to Eastern traditions. In the Western world, especially in the 19th and 20th centuries, esoteric movements adopted this legend in various ways. Some described Shambhala as a mystical civilization connected to the world through hidden underground tunnels. Others equated it with Agartha, imagining it as a place inhabited by a people possessing lost technologies. Such interpretations transformed Shambhala into a kind of extraterrestrial center of knowledge. Even in the modern age, the allure of Shambhala has not faded. It still appears in novels, films, and documentaries. In fact, what makes Shambhala so captivating is that it cannot be found on any map. You might search for Atlantis at the bottom of the ocean, but Shambhala reminds us that the journey must be sought not outwardly, but inwardly. In that sense, this kingdom is like a metaphor for a state of consciousness one can reach by turning toward one's own heart. The legend of Avalon, on the other hand, emerges as the Western world's paradise hidden behind mists. In Celtic mythology and the legends of King Arthur, Avalon is a magical island beyond the boundaries of the mortal world, reachable only by the chosen. It is most prominent in the story of King Arthur. According to the legend, when Arthur is gravely wounded in his final battle, he is taken to Avalon, where he awaits healing. Because the island is shrouded in mist, no one from the outside can know its exact location, making Avalon both mysterious and unreachable. The island is also the source of Excalibur, Arthur's sword, which makes it a symbol of rebirth and power. The mythological significance of Avalon is not limited to being a hero's final destination. The island actually represents the thin line between death and life. The mist symbolizes this passage, the boundary unseen by earthly eyes, where the soul steps into another realm. For this reason, Avalon can be read both as a metaphor for a peaceful death and as the hope of rebirth. In Celtic mythology, Avalon is believed to be an island of abundance and fertility, filled with fruit trees, which makes it almost a worldly paradise. Avalon's appeal continued in legends that later blended with Christianity. In medieval Europe, Avalon began to be identified with the paradise promised by Jesus. In more modern times, the idea of a land behind the mists became a powerful symbol of mystery and the unknown in literature and popular culture. Today, Avalon lives on in humanity's imagination about crossing beyond, symbolizing faith in peace after death, a lost golden age, and perhaps a savior who will one day return. In ancient Greek mythology, the legend of Hyperborea tells of a land beyond the north winds, where eternal spring prevails. Even the origin of its name carries this idea, hyper meaning beyond and Boreas meaning the north wind. For the Greeks, Boreas was the god of freezing cold winds. Therefore, imagining a land beyond Boreas meant dreaming of a geography where cold, harsh winters and death did not exist. The people living in Hyperborea seemed to be rewarded with immortality. There was no illness, war, or hunger. The land was fertile, and the days were long and bright. It was believed that the god Apollo left Delphi during the winter and traveled to Hyperborea, which is why Hyperborea was also seen as the home of divine light. For the ancient Greeks, the north was where the map ended, a mysterious land unknown to anyone. In describing Hyperborea, they were in fact expressing a perfection they themselves could not reach. It was a reflection of humanity's age-old longing for a golden age. Interestingly, in the modern era, Hyperborea was reinterpreted. In the 19th and 20th centuries, some occult groups and political ideologies used this myth for their own purposes. Especially under the name Thule, the idea of a lost civilization in the far north became intertwined with various ideological narratives. Yet beyond these interpretations, Hyperborea today symbolizes one of humanity's unending dreams, a land without pain, death, or time. In the mysterious geographies of the East, we encounter very different tales of lost lands. One of the earliest is Dilmun, found in Sumerian mythology. In ancient texts, Dilmun is described as a land without disease, old age, or death, a place where the gods dwell and abundance and prosperity never fade. In Mesopotamian epics, It is said that Gilgamesh sought to reach Dilmun in his quest for immortality. Some researchers associate Dilmun with present-day Bahrain and the surrounding islands. However, its true importance lies not in its geographical location, but in how it answers humanity's longing for immortality and perfection. Dilmun was such a powerful paradise archetype that it may even have inspired the story of the Garden of Eden. Another legendary city is Irem. In the Quran, the gardens of Irem are mentioned. This city, with its lofty pillars, symbolizes the pride and ostentation of the people of Ad. The passage that mentions the gardens of Irem appears in Surah Al-Fajr, verses 6 to 14. In these verses, while recounting nations that were destroyed in the past, reference is made to the people of Ad and their city, Irem. Have you not seen how your Lord dealt with Ad? With Aram of the lofty pillars, the like of which had never been created in the land, and Thamud, who carved the rocks in the valley, and Pharaoh of the stakes. They all transgressed in the lands and spread corruption therein. So your Lord poured upon them a scourge of punishment. Indeed, your Lord is ever watchful. Here, Irem is portrayed as a city famed for its towering pillars, and the phrase, the like of which had never been created in the land, emphasizes its splendor and unmatched magnificence. Yet this wealth and power led its people to corruption and excess. In the end, they were destroyed by God's punishment. This narrative turns Irem into a symbol of warning. Like other nations mentioned in the Quran, the people of Ad vanished from history because they were intoxicated by power and abandoned justice. Even today, archaeological research in the Arabian Peninsula continues to search for traces of this lost city buried in the desert. And in African legend, Zerzura is said to have been a hidden city made of white stone in the Sahara Desert, spoken of for centuries. It was believed that treasures covered in gold and people of extraordinary beauty lived there. European explorers pursued Zerzura throughout the 19th and 20th centuries. Maps were drawn, caravans set out, yet the city was never found. Perhaps it was alluring precisely because it could not be found. Dilmun, Irem, and Zerzura, though born in different cultures, all lead to the same point. Humanity cannot help but imagine a perfect place, whether it is a land of immortality, a splendor lost to arrogance, or a paradise hidden in the desert. The Quranic account of Irem has drawn the attention of many researchers throughout history. The expression, Irem of the lofty pillars, raised the question of whether it might truly point to a city lost in the desert. For many years, this city was regarded as nothing more than a legend. Arab Bedouins spoke of a lost city deep in the desert that they called Uber. Mentioned even in 1001 Nights, this city was remembered for its magnificent structures adorned with gold. Research conducted in the 1990s suggested that this legend might have a historical basis. Radar scans carried out using NASA satellites revealed ancient caravan routes in the deserts of Oman. At the points where these routes intersected, a collapsed large settlement was discovered. Archaeologists identified this site as Uber, and some researchers proposed that it might be connected to the city of Irem mentioned in the Quran. The remains found there indeed indicated an architecture pointing to tall towers and large pillars. The city was most likely a major center of trade, located at the crossroads of incense and spice routes. Over time, however, both geographical changes and the excesses of its people seem to have brought about its end. It is thought that collapses, sandstorms, and natural disasters may have swallowed the city. These findings reignited the debate over whether Irem was a legend or a real city. Some scholars argue Irem is entirely symbolic. It represents not a city, but the splendor of the people of Ad. Others maintain that the historical realities described in the Quran align with archaeological evidence. Yet what both perspectives share is this common point. Whether Irem was a real city or a symbolic narrative, it teaches the same lesson. boasting of power and magnificence, building an order shaped by arrogance and oppression, leaves even the grandest cities defenseless before an invisible force like a sandstorm. When we move a little closer to the present, one of the most striking myths of the modern age is Relaya. This city, which appears in the stories written by H.P. Lovecraft in the early 20th century, is entirely fictional, yet it is described so powerfully that today it is almost perceived as real. According to Lovecraft, Relaya is a city lying in the deepest parts of the ocean, filled with colossal structures built at angles beyond human comprehension, home to a cosmic horror. There, the great old one Cthulhu waits in his sleep, and humanity sometimes hears his whispers in dreams. This shows that Relaya is also a symbol of the darkest fears in our subconscious. Lovecraft's mythology, though unreal yet told as if it were real, became so influential that over time many people embraced Relaya and Cthulhu as if they had emerged from the legends of ancient civilizations. Another modern myth is the Land of Oz, the world that began with The Wizard of Oz, written by Frank Baum in the 1900s, may at first seem like a simple children's tale, but it has actually carved out a deep place in our collective imagination. With its colorful cities reached by the yellow brick road and its strange creatures, Oz has become the modern lost land of the West. Like Atlantis, Shambhala, or Avalon, Oz symbolizes a different and hard-to-reach state of consciousness. The difference is that Oz was born not from ancient mythology, but from the power of literature. Yet this does not make it any less influential, because for millions of people today, Oz is the kingdom of innocence, friendship, and imagination. These examples show us one thing clearly. Even in the modern age, humanity cannot give up creating myths. In the past, there were gods, heroes, and lost cities. Today, there are worlds like Relaya or Oz born from fiction, yet living on in the collective consciousness. The common picture that emerges from all these lost kingdoms, mist-shrouded islands, and hidden cities is striking. Atlantis, Shambhala, Avalon, Hyperborea, Dilmun, and even the modern creations Relaya and Oz may seem to have appeared in different cultures and at different times, but at their core they all respond to the same human need. Throughout its existence, humanity has always searched for an otherworld. Sometimes this otherworld sank to the bottom of the sea. Sometimes it hid beyond mountains. Sometimes it withdrew into the depths of our own consciousness. Today, these realms do not exist for us to find on maps. They exist so that we may embark on a journey within ourselves. If you liked my video, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. See you in my next video. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye.